Created by Japanese animation studio Sunrise, Mobile Suit Gundam Wing is a 49-episode series that originally ran in Japan from April 7, 1995 to March 29, 1996. In the United States, it aired in Cartoon Network's Toonami block from March 6 to May 11, 2000, and is how I was first introduced to this series and Mobile Suit Gundam. Throughout Gundam Wing, many themes of war, peace, pacifism, and the differences between the weak and the strong are pondered by the characters. Often they will engage in philosophical debates with each other as much as they clash in their mobile suits. Something that stood out to me is that there is no set antagonistic force throughout the series. Every one of the characters desires peace, but the route they choose to take to achieve it leads to conflict with others who differ in opinion. At first, there is relative peace thanks to the United Earth-Sphere Alliance, though their oppression of the colonies who desire independence causes the events of Gundam Wing. Immediately preceding the series is the assassination of Hiro Yue, a pacifistic leader in the colonies. This causes 5 scientists to defect from the Oz Corporation, a military supplier for the United Earth-Sphere Alliance. They join onto and proceed to modify Operation Meteor, whose original goal was to make Earth uninhabitable and force humanity to migrate to the space colonies. However, the scientists each create their own unique Gundam and send each one to Earth separately with orders to disrupt Oz's operations on Earth. Throughout Gundam Wing, we follow each of the Gundam pilots, Hiro, Duo, Troa, Quatra, and Wufei, as well as several key secondary characters which include Relena Peacecraft, heir to the Sank Kingdom, a country which preaches the path of true pacifism, Zex Marquis, secretly Miliardo Peacecraft, who disguised himself to infiltrate Oz and get revenge on those in the Alliance who caused the destruction of his homeland and the death of his father, Treyas Kushernada, a prominent member of the Rockefeller Foundation which controls Oz, Lucretia Noin, a devoted colleague of Zex, and Lady Un, a devoted colleague of Treyas. Zex Marquis has one of the most compelling backstories and most interesting character arcs of them all. Having started out as the prince of a pacifist nation, he turned his back on his family's legacy of peace to engage in the violence of the Oz Corporation, in order to get revenge on those who killed his father and destroyed the kingdom. This causes a great deal of internal conflict, as his family's legacy as one of peace clashes with the current life of violence he lives. It doesn't help that he is an adept pilot, and later masters the Zero system, one that drives lesser minds insane with its flow of battle data and images of future possibilities. Once Oz's coup d'etat of the Alliance is complete, he continues to serve underneath his friend Treyas until he is forced out by other factions of the Rockefeller Foundation. His own ambition begins to diverge from Oz as he desires a rematch with Hiro in the Wing Gundam, and goes so far as to secretly retrieve, transport, and rebuild the Gundam model without Oz. His prominence as a leader within the corporation sets Rockefeller on edge, despite Treyas' attempts to protect him. Guided by his own sense of honor and loyalty, Zex defies Rockefeller's ruthless ambitions and flees to space after the Sank Kingdom is reestablished with Relena as its leader. He entrusts Noin with Relena's protection, and continues to rebel against Rockefeller in space. However, Relena dissolves the Sank Kingdom while under pressure from Rockefeller, and Zex returns to Earth too late to save his country. Having lived through the fall of the Sank Kingdom twice now, Zex is thrown into depression. It is not until the White Fang, an extremist faction within the colonies, offers him leadership of their organization that he finds the cause once again. Zex accepts and seeks to destroy the Earth, seeing it as the source of all the violence he has seen throughout his life. To that end, he declares war on the world nation under Treyas, who proceeds to invade space and engage White Fang in an all-out battle. Having surrounded himself with violence for most of his life, and experiencing the destruction of his home country twice now, it can give some understanding to his decision to try and essentially destroy the Earth. Zex's character had lived for so long underneath Oz for the sole purpose of restoring his home nation. To base an entire life on one purpose, only to see it dissolve and appear too late to change anything about it, broke him. Zex is also a bit of a selfish character, pushing Relena into a role without taking her own wants into consideration. While it turns out that Relena embraces her family's teachings of true pacifism, she was never asked beforehand. It just makes his decision behind joining White Fang more reasonable when you understand his obsession with resurrecting the Sank Kingdom. Knowing Relena is safe in space when he joins the White Fang also gives him more assurance, since she was the only character he frequently showed true emotion for. Even with Noin, he was very standoffish. Hiro is the only one to truly understand his decision, thanks to their previous duels and the Zero system's ability to show flashes of the future. Unlike previously, we aren't shown what the Zero system tells Zex about his own future, although Hiro speculates it is the same thing Wing Zero showed him, nothing.
Hey, Zex. According to Zero, you have no future. Is Epion telling you differently?
Zex verbally spars with Relina before taking his Gundam Epion out to duel Hero amidst the falling Libra spacecraft. After losing to Hero, he relents and sacrifices himself to destroy the piece of Libra that was falling towards Earth as some form of redemption. Whereas much of the Gundam pilots have very vague or non-existent backgrounds, Zex has a passion, a tragic backstory that gives him sufficient motivation to succeed. Sure, he works for Oz, who were at first set up against our protagonists, the Gundam pilots, but Zex also has his own code of honor that doesn't really make him a villain. In episode 13, Catherine's Tears, Zex returns to the Lake Victoria base and meets two of Noin's former students. He accompanies them on a mission, but when he discovers their bloodlust and merciless treatment of the surrendering enemy, he executes them for the dishonor. Previously, when he confronted the Gundams, he did so in battle not with the purpose of killing them, but of matching against a warrior who could challenge his own skill. Lady Un's usage of the Space Fortress barge to hold the colonies hostage is also protested by Zex, who sees no honor in the manipulation. To this end, he recovers and repairs the Wing Gundam to rematch Hero on even grounds in Antarctica, even if it means being hunted by Oz and Ramafeller. The only other character to experience a lengthy arc is Lady Un, who begins as a ruthless officer of Oz assassinating Vice Foreign Minister Darlin, Relina's adoptive father, who reveals her true heritage with his dying breath. Lady Un also participates in one of the more extravagant executions seen, dropping an Alliance general out of a trapdoor on a plane only to shoot him in the head as he freefalls. Un is a very ruthless character in her introductory episodes, achieving victory by any means necessary, and showing little regard for anything but success. She tracks down the Gundam pilots, holds their homes hostage, and is nearly killed by Relina. Due to her increasingly violent nature, Treyas sends her to space to act as an ambassador, instead of military officer, after chiding her for her inability to show compassion. This criticism, coming from someone she is clearly infatuated with, causes the more peaceful side of her personality to emerge. Although this personality exists separately from the more violent Lady Un we were introduced to. As a peaceful ambassador, Lady Un secures colony support for Oz, in contrast to the Alliance. In the background, Un continues to run Oz's military efforts in space. Treyas is removed from power by Ramafeller due to his opposition to the Mobile Doll program, and Quattro begins to destroy entire colonies in the Gundam Wing Zero. Lady Un starts to suspect traitors from within, imprisoning her subordinate Nicole for acting separately from herself. These factors of stress culminate when she becomes aware of her own split personality and is shot during a coup by Ramafeller agent Subarov after freeing the Gundam pilots and the defected scientists. This is a major shift for her character, which has spent the better part of the series hunting and exploiting the Gundam pilots. As her peaceful and violent sides begin to reconcile with each other, she realizes the ruthless Oz Corporation no longer lines up with Treyas' wishes due to the Mobile Doll program. She spends the rest of the series in a coma, recovering from the bullet wound. Awakening in the lead-up to the finale, she pilots the Wing Gundam to push Treyas out of the Libra's beam, and takes over Earth's forces after his death. One Gundam pilot I was particularly drawn to was Chang Wu-Fei. At first, he is a lot like the others, inexplicably trained to be a top military agent despite his age, and very rarely showing much emotion. It is not until his duel with Treyas that we begin to see some depth to his character. Having lost a sword duel to Treyas, and being spared in the aftermath, Wu-Fei wanders in China, still an independent state underneath the Alliance, and ruled by the cruel Kono Bunt. It is here he encounters Sally Po, and her small band of rebels fighting the oppressive government. Wu-Fei has lost the will to fight, only doing so to save the near-helpless rebels because they are outmatched. He scolds them for fighting an unwinnable battle, and feels shameful for losing to Treyas, but still being allowed to live. It is not until he witnesses several rebels die for him that he reconsiders his position. He saves Sally, and pilots the Shenlong to destroy all opposing forces, including the Colonel. The immense guilt Wu-Fei feels for losing, but still living, is a standout early on for being one that takes time to familiarize us with the Gundam pilot and his reasons for fighting. Why does Wu-Fei live while many others who have lost battles beforehand died for their weakness? Wu-Fei states he is a coward for losing and not accepting death as the consequence. He blames Treyas for the guilt, and this comes full circle when he seems to accidentally kill Treyas during a duel in their mobile suits near the finale. Wu-Fei goes so far as to state that he wasn't even expecting to win, most likely fueled by his earlier defeat and the guilt he has carried ever since.
Bye, Wu-Fei, my eternal friend. I'm honored I could fight with you pilots.
This can't be true! No way! I won't let this happen!
Meliardo, I'll be waiting on the other side. Damn it! I didn't think I'd win.
Episode 12, Bewildered Warriors, also offers an interesting look into what an independent state looks like at this period. Underneath the Alliance government, we see soldiers leveraging their power to lord over the common people, only being thrown out after Sally and Wu Fei confront them and stir up a small mob. The Alliance colonel in charge betrays his comrades in order to advance his own position underneath Oz, though Wu Fei kills him before his plan can come to fruition. An aspect of Wu Fei's character that the series never really portrays as a negative is his sexism towards women. In both of his encounters with Noin and Sally, he voices distaste towards a woman's place on the battlefield. It is never addressed by a character, and instead they usually shrug it off. This seems out of place, since Gundam Wing has a strong cast of female characters, from Noin and Relina to Lady Une and Sally Po, each with her own personal wants and needs that progress and adapt along the main narrative. For Wu Fei to view women as weak and only because of their sex is dumb. As the only character who ever portrays these feelings, it also stands awkwardly alone. Wu Fei also suffers an immense loss when his colony self-destructs to release Wu Fei from any leverage Oz may be able to hold over him. It wasn't until Wu Fei piloted the Wing Zero and interfaced with the Zero system that he was given clarity by the system's ability to show pilots their possible futures. In his, he sees both Zex and Treyas as his enemies. Confronting Treyas in the penultimate episode, Wu Fei asks if Treyas understands the consequences of his actions, how it has caused seemingly countless deaths. Wu Fei sees Treyas, and rightly so, as one of the major reasons for the confrontation between White Fang and Earth, the cause of Oz's military movements in space, and partially responsible for his home colony being destroyed. Treyas surprises Wu Fei by recounting the exact number of soldiers who have died since the conflict began, requesting Lady Une to recite their names to him later. This again plays into the idea that there is no true antagonist in Gundam Wing. Treyas, much like his friend Zex, had to shoulder the responsibility of many deaths in order to achieve peace. Whereas Zex fought to reestablish the Sank Kingdom and see Relina's ideals of true pacifism spread, Treyas foresaw peace achieved only after bringing both Earth and the colonies underneath his leadership through Oz and Ramafeller. The theme of pacifism, its implementation, and consequences are addressed throughout Gundam Wing, especially once Relina's peacecraft heritage is revealed. After her father's death, Relina learns a bit about her family, although this doesn't stop her from attempting to assassinate Lady Une for revenge for her adoptive father's death. This fails, and she falls under protection of Noin, sent by Relina's brother, Meliardo, aka Zex. She disappears for a bit until the second half of the series, where she has become fully invested in the Sank Kingdom's teachings of true pacifism, even debating its merits with Dorothy Catalina, the granddaughter of Duke Dermail, de facto leader of Ramafeller. In conflict with Relina's belief that peace can only be achieved when all weapons are destroyed, Noin secretly employs a security force to ensure the Sank Kingdom does not once again face destruction. Despite this, Ramafeller manipulates surrounding rebels to justify an invasion of the Sank Kingdom, something they cannot do openly due to internal factions coming around to Relina's teachings. To circumvent this, Duke Dermail forces Relina to accept a position inside Ramafeller in exchange for the sparing of Noin and the Sank Kingdom at large. Relina takes advantage of her newfound reach and declares an end to international borders to begin the formation of the World Nation, a unified Earth that would do away with weapons because of that unity. Her favor within Ramafeller leads to a peaceful transition of power, with Relina usurping Dermail, only to be dismissed by Treyas, who returns from exile to take advantage of the unified nation Relina has created in order to subjugate the colonies, specifically the only remaining opposition, the extremist group White Fang, led by Treyas' former ally Zex. Removed from power, Relina travels to space in order to try to talk Zex out of his bitter anger at Earth for the dissolution of his home country, but to no avail. Very frequently, Relina espouses the belief that true peace can only be obtained when all weapons are destroyed. Most of the other characters admire her naivety, having lived through situations where a lack of weapons only meant those with them could easily hold power. It is because of her maintaining this position that many in power who are sympathetic towards a peaceful existence instead of ambitions of grandeur, such as Duke Dermail, begin to back Relina. Relina is the only one worthy of leading a unified Earth and colony government, because she would not use weapons to renew the endless cycle of war. However, it is also because of her refusal to support violence that Zex is forced to abandon his family's heritage, and engage in violence to assure its resurrection underneath Relena. Her refusal of violence is also why Treyas comes into power, as only he would be able to defeat the White Fang, who would not listen to reason or appeals for a peaceful coexistence. Her refusal of violence is why Duke Dermail couldn't assassinate her, lest he make her a martyr for the people to rise. Instead, he attempts to make her a puppet to expand Rockefeller, but this backfires as his own council begin to take a liking to her teachings, in opposition to the military might previously enacted. There are some bad attempts at drama, especially early on. As I mentioned beforehand, Lady Un's ruthlessness becomes at times an extreme version of the reality usually portrayed. Relena's immediate attachment to Hiro is dumb, especially considering he threatened to kill her very soon after their meeting. Each Gundam pilot is apparently one of the best at what they do, despite no real prior training. Even additional backstories provided by extended universe readings, only Hiro has a reasonable premise for his abilities as an agent of chaos, having been raised by the assassin of the original Hiro Yui, leader of the colonies prior to the events of Gundam Wing. It gives a source for his military experience and knowledge. In fact, the series doesn't really give any background information on our protagonists, which makes it harder to empathize with them when they come across as emotionless machines, not unlike the ones they pilot, tools for an end. Wu Fei is expanded upon, who most only hit one note and hit it consistently throughout the series. Hiro holds the others in contempt, Duo has a laid-back personality, never taking anything too seriously. Troa is perhaps the most dull of them all, only when suffering from the stress of memory loss and recovery does he show much emotion. Quattro is the overly kind-hearted of the group, and Wu Fei, as I mentioned before, usually on his own, and has most depth of the five. Despite being our heroes, most of the Gundam pilots are bland superhumans, which is why characters like Zex, Treyas, Lady Un, and Relena become more interesting despite their status as mostly secondary characters. Another recurring theme throughout the 49 episodes of Gundam Wing is honor, something that is brought to the forefront with the introduction of the mobile doll system, where mobile suits are controlled not by human pilots, but by AI. This mechanic is introduced by the Rockefeller Foundation, who see it as a much more efficient use of resources than humans, both due to their increased accuracy and the disposable nature of something that is purely machine. All major soldier characters instantly react with distaste at the introduction of these machines. Treyas and Zex, as soldiers for Oz, view them with disdain, as dishonorable ways to wage war. The Rockefeller Foundation, decidedly based on the idea of European royalty, has an outward presence that would suggest the idea of honorable war, the kind fought prior to World War II's Blitzkrieg, where armies would line up against one another and fire until the other yielded. This belief is propagated by both Treyas and Zex, as both attempt one-on-one duels. Treyas against Zex near the finale as a way to spare lives and determine whether the White Fang or United Earth would take victory that day. And Zex against Hiro after their original bout was interrupted by Lady Un. He even goes so far as to repair the Wing Gundam underneath Oz's nose, something that pushes him out of their good grace even with Treyas' protection. Mobile dolls undermine this honor, as they have no feelings, no passion for battle, no mercy or empathy. Inside, they are cold, calculating machines designed to kill and nothing else. What would be the point of battles when it was simply machine against machine? Wars fought by humans required sacrifice and belief in a cause in order to prevail. But with machines, it would be reduced to wanton destruction with no sacrifices. It is Suvorov's arrogance in the implementation of the mobile doll program that ultimately kills him, as he believes them to be the ultimate weapon, despite being torn apart by the Altan Gundam piloted by Wu Fei. Despite containing some of the plights of 1990s anime, from characters having mediocre to bad voice acting, reused animation, recaps buffering each episode taking up space from the overall runtime, and conversations or speeches being restated with different words but the same meaning as filler, Mobile Suit Gundam Wing still delivers a very compelling take on war, pacifism, and the various ways in which characters attempt to achieve peace in the troubled future, where large mechanical humanoid robots make up the bulk of military offenses. And lastly, a big thank you to everyone who decided to take the time to watch this. I hope you found it interesting and somewhat entertaining, and hopefully you also enjoy Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, or perhaps many of the other mini spin-offs and main series throughout the Gundam Wing license.